The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the shattered carbon fiber bumper of my Volvo. It was 2:14 a.m. on Interstate 90 just outside Seattle, and the rain was coming down in freezing sheets. I stood 12 feet away from the smoking wreckage while my brother Marcus wept into the shoulder of a Washington state trooper. He was pointing his shaking finger directly at me. Marcus told the officer that I was driving, claiming I was deeply intoxicated before forcing him into the passenger seat. He said I lost control and spun the car into the concrete median, and the trooper wrote every single lie down on his citation pad. I did not yell or act hysterically, nor did I interrupt my brother to defend my own character. I just analytically calculated the exact cost of the visible damage. The front passenger quarter panel alone was an $8,450.22 replacement. But the sheet metal was the least of his problems. My name is David, I am 34 years old, and I work as a Senior Telematics Forensics Director for a global commercial underwriter. My job is to reconstruct catastrophic collisions using raw vehicle data, which means my personal vehicle is not just a standard commuter car. It is a highly calibrated rolling data center. Marcus did not know about the $14,200 LiDAR array concealed directly behind the custom front grille. He was entirely unaware of the dual-channel multiplexer hardwired into the diagnostic port. He definitely did not know it was actively syncing CAN bus data to my private encrypted server. Tell me something right now. Have you ever stood in the freezing rain while someone tried to hand you a felony? Have you ever watched a family member attempt to destroy your life to save themselves? Drop your time and location in the comments if you know this exact feeling of total betrayal. The trooper walked over to me with his hand resting cautiously on his duty belt. He asked me to step toward the front of his cruiser, smelling strongly of damp wool and stale black coffee. He told me my brother was willing to press charges for reckless endangerment. Marcus stood by the guardrail with a trembling lip and a practiced look of victimhood. He thought he had successfully trapped me. He thought I would panic and absorb the blame. I looked at the trooper and politely requested my attorney. I spent the next 4 hours sitting in a bleak municipal holding cell. I waited patiently while my corporate attorney secured my temporary release. I did not pace the concrete floor or bite my nails. Marcus went straight home with our mother immediately after the crash. This was the exact operating dynamic our family had relied upon for decades. My mother, Helen, views Marcus as a misunderstood visionary. She treats me strictly as an automated clearinghouse for his mistakes. Over the past 7 years, I have quietly absorbed the collateral costs of his failures. I documented every single digital transaction. I covered exactly $41,200.50 in his outstanding personal debts. I paid the $3,150 retainer for his previous suspended license violation. I settled a $9,400 civil claim when he backed his truck into a commercial storefront. I absorbed these expenses solely to maintain baseline stability in the family. That financial buffer was now permanently closed. Marcus needed my Volvo that night because his own engine block had cracked. He claimed he was attending a mandatory high-level property investor seminar. Commercial real estate was his 6th failed career pivot in just 3 years. I handed him my encrypted key fob at exactly 6 that evening. I established a strict operational boundary regarding any alcohol consumption. He smiled warmly and swore he would only drink sparkling water. The onboard telemetry servers were already proving that was a complete fabrication. By 9 the next morning, the psychological manipulation actively commenced. Helen left me 4 consecutive voicemails before I even drank my coffee. She did not bother to ask if I was physically injured. She demanded to know why I was trying to maliciously destroy my brother. She claimed the crash was entirely my fault. She reasoned that I should not own a vehicle with such aggressive acceleration parameters. She insisted I accept the felony charge to protect his pending real estate license. She spoke with the absolute certainty of a woman who had never faced material consequences. She assumed I would immediately fold under the pressure of family duty. She assumed my silence on the phone meant I was feeling deeply guilty. She did not realize my silence was purely administrative. I was not agonizing over her aggressive emotional demands. I was simply waiting for the raw vehicle data packets to finish downloading. I was about to end this toxic cycle for good. My profession requires absolute precision when analyzing mechanical failure. The family always viewed my career as merely fixing computers. They never understood the actual scope of my digital infrastructure. They just enjoyed the seamless benefits of my unseen labor. I maintained the family enterprise server running out of my basement. This server managed Helen's aggressive real estate portfolios and Marcus's banking. I also managed the primary commercial insurance policy covering everyone. Marcus took my car because I always kept it perfectly maintained. He assumed it was just another expensive luxury Swedish sedan. He did not know I had retrofitted the electronic control unit. The vehicle was equipped with an enterprise-grade telemetry logging suite. It tracked steering angle input to the exact millimeter. It recorded brake pedal pressure metrics at 60 frames per second. Most importantly, it utilized a dual-lens wide-angle interior cabin camera. This camera captured infrared video and synced it with spatial audio. The dashcam footage alone was a $150,000 corporate asset. Marcus had driven a rolling surveillance apparatus right into a wall. I sat at my workstation and opened the encrypted data packets. The forensic visualization software rendered the entire incident in 3 dimensions. I watched the exact moment the crash sequence initiated. The vehicle log showed a throttle position of 98%. The cabin audio recorded Marcus screaming wildly over extremely loud music. The infrared camera clearly showed him sitting in the driver's seat. It also recorded the specific brand of vodka in his hand. I could see the time stamps burning neatly into the corner. He had exactly 2.4 seconds to apply the brakes. The telemetry data proved he never even touched the pedal. He simply let the heavy vehicle plow straight into the concrete. Helen and Marcus assumed they could just control the narrative. They thought they only had to manipulate a tired state trooper. They entirely forgot who paid the premium on their data plans. They forgot who held the administrative passwords to their digital lives. I systematically exported the raw video files to 3 separate drives. I cross-referenced the biometric thumbprint logs from the push-button ignition. Every single keystroke built an impenetrable wall of empirical evidence. I did not feel any anger as I compiled the master video file. I felt the very quiet satisfaction of a properly executed forensic audit. Helen called me again at exactly 11:14 a.m. She left a 3-minute voicemail detailing my supposed psychological defects. She threatened to hire a private attorney to sue me for Marcus's impending emotional distress. That specific threat was the final algorithmic trigger. The familial contract was officially null and void. I did not text her back or attempt to argue my case. I simply opened my master administrative dashboard. The quiet severance had officially begun. My first protocol involved the master commercial insurance policy. I was the primary policyholder for the family umbrella coverage. This massive policy insured Helen's 3 rental properties and Marcus's primary residence. The total annual premium was exactly $12,450.88, paid directly from my personal checking account. I logged into the digital underwriting portal and initiated an immediate midterm cancellation. I cited a severe breach of primary driver provisions. I explicitly revoked the liability coverage for Marcus's remaining vehicles. The corporate system processed the cancellation and generated a prorated refund of $6,215.44. They were now operating their daily lives entirely uninsured. I carefully printed the time-stamped confirmation receipt for my permanent forensic records. Next, I systematically dismantled their digital infrastructure. Helen relied on my custom AWS cloud server for her property management business. It hosted all her active tenant leases and historical financial ledgers. I initiated a root-level access purge across the entire network architecture. I locked the primary administrator portal and changed the cryptographic keys. I migrated her 412 gigabytes of business data onto an encrypted cold storage drive. I then wiped the active cloud instances completely clean. When Helen tried to collect her afternoon rent payments, she would only see a standard 400 for gateway timeout error. Her entire digital back office immediately ceased to exist. The final step of the administrative withdrawal was their daily telecommunications. I legally owned the primary family cellular service plan. I paid exactly $244.18 every month for their unlimited premium data and mobile hotspot access. I accessed the carrier administrator console using my secure corporate credentials. I located the specific IMEI numbers for both of their flagship smartphones. I aggressively flagged both expensive devices as stolen hardware. I initiated an immediate carrier-level network block across all cellular bands. Their bright screens would suddenly display a persistent no-service warning. They were now entirely cut off from the outside modern world. I sat back in my ergonomic desk chair and watched the live server logs. I could see the exact milliseconds when their automated system requests started failing. I watched Helen's property management software desperately try to ping the dead database. I monitored Marcus's phone attempting to handshake with local cell towers and getting instantly rejected. I slowly poured myself a tall glass of cold mineral water. I felt absolutely no remorse or residual guilt over these calculated actions. I had simply turned off the utilities in a structurally condemned building. The demolition phase was currently proceeding perfectly on schedule. I took a slow sip of water and waited for the inevitable panic. The initial wave of panic registered on my network monitor at exactly 2:14 p.m. Helen's property management software triggered 72 consecutive failed connection attempts in under 3 seconds. 30 minutes later, my secure voice over IP terminal illuminated on my desk. The incoming caller identification matched the commercial landline at a nearby luxury leasing office. They had physically driven to a public phone to regain their lost leverage. I engaged the encrypted call recording protocol and answered without speaking a word. Helen was breathing heavily into the plastic receiver. She did not ask why her expensive smartphone was permanently deactivated. She immediately deployed her standard tactic of aggressive psychological projection. She told me I was experiencing a severe and dangerous mental breakdown. She claimed my malicious actions were actively destroying our sacred family legacy. She demanded I restore her cloud database access within the next 10 minutes. If I refused, she promised to call the police and request a mandatory psychiatric welfare check. She said the authorities would clearly see my instability and lock me away. She promised to file for legal conservatorship over my personal estate and assets. Marcus suddenly grabbed the receiver away from her hands. His tone was heavily layered with artificial entitlement and suppressed rage. He reminded me that the state trooper had already officially cited me for the collision. He stated that hiding behind my glowing monitors would not save me from federal prison. He loudly demanded I immediately transfer $4,000 to his frozen checking account. He needed the immediate capital to secure a specialized defense attorney for his upcoming deposition. He claimed it was the absolute minimum I owed him for ruining his professional reputation. I listened to the exact acoustic cadence of their frantic threats. Their voices echoed with the desperate energy of newly cornered predators. They relied entirely on generating immense emotional fear to force my total compliance. They fully expected me to apologize and beg for a swift, peaceful resolution. I calmly checked the real-time audio wave levels on my secondary diagnostic monitor. The digital decibel meter peaked at exactly 84 when Marcus started screaming about his credit score. I did not interrupt their frantic monologues or attempt to defend my current mental sanity. I simply waited patiently for a natural pause in their heavy verbal assault. I informed them that all financial and digital subsidies were now permanently and legally terminated. I stated that my corporate attorney was managing all future communications regarding the vehicular incident. Helen gasped dramatically into the phone and accused me of abandoning my own blood. Marcus aggressively threatened to drive to my house and physically smash my server racks. I pressed a single mechanical key and immediately terminated the active voice connection. The heavy digital silence slowly filled the entire room. The escalation phase was now properly documented and perfectly archived. I had exactly what I needed. The trap was fully set for them. They just had to walk right inside. I waited. The preparation of the administrative trap required surgical precision and absolute focus. I needed to assemble a forensic packet so dense it would completely neutralize their narrative. I opened the master SQL database logging the Volvo's final mechanical moments. I pulled the exact geospatial coordinates mapping Interstate 90 at 2:14 a.m. The GPS array recorded the vehicle traveling at 87.4 miles per hour in a 60 zone. The system timestamp matched precisely with the state trooper's official dispatched arrival time. I isolated the biometric ignition logs from my secure multiplexer. The vehicle's start button requires a registered thumbprint to engage the primary drivetrain. I had previously logged Marcus into the system, so he could move the car during driveway maintenance. The digital ledger clearly showed his unique biometric signature initiating the engine at 1:42 a.m. That was exactly 32 minutes before the front bumper violently met the concrete median. This single data point actively dismantled his claim that I was driving. But I needed absolute, undeniable overkill to ensure maximum structural damage. The interior cabin dashcam provided the ultimate, devastating payload. I scrubbed the infrared video file and extracted 12 high-resolution still frames. Frame 4 showed Marcus holding his phone, actively texting while driving through the freezing rain. Frame 7 clearly displayed the dashboard digital cluster, highlighting the deactivated traction control system. He had manually disabled the safety features to try and drift the heavy sedan. Frame 11 captured the exact moment he realized the car was spinning entirely out of control. His face was a mask of pure terror, illuminated by the harsh glow of the dashboard warning lights. I compiled all of this data into a secure, heavily encrypted PDF dossier. I included the $8,450.22 repair estimate for the front quarter panel. I attached the audio transcript of his desperate threats from the luxury leasing office landline. I embedded the raw telemetry graphs showing 98% throttle application moments before impact. The final document was a 72-page masterwork of cold, undeniable truth. It was a digital guillotine designed to sever their false reality permanently. I did not send this dossier to the police or the state trooper. I transmitted the encrypted file directly to my corporate attorney, Sarah. Sarah is a ruthless former prosecutor who bills exactly $650 per hour. I instructed her to draft a formal civil complaint for extreme property damage and severe criminal fraud. I authorized her to immediately forward the master file to the primary state insurance fraud investigator. By submitting a false police report, Marcus had technically triggered a complex felony insurance fraud investigation. They believed they were playing a simple game of family emotional blackmail. They did not understand they had actively engaged a massive corporate legal machine. The heavy bureaucratic gears were now slowly turning. The administrative trap was fully armed, completely buried, and actively waiting for them to step on the pressure plate. The digital silence from their end lasted exactly 48 hours. Then, the inevitable tactical shift occurred. Without their mobile data, cloud access, or insurance coverage, their daily operational reality was crumbling. They needed my administrative power restored immediately, but threats had failed. So they attempted a calculated pivot to manufactured sympathy. At precisely 6:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. The exterior security camera feed showed Helen and Marcus standing on my porch holding 2 large pepperoni pizzas. I engaged the two-way intercom system from my desk. I did not unlock the deadbolt or disable the perimeter alarm. Helen's voice drifted through the small speaker, dripping with artificial maternal warmth. She claimed they just wanted to sit down, share a meal, and talk things out like a real family. She said Marcus was ready to offer a sincere apology for his minor emotional outburst. She suggested that if I just turned the phones back on, we could easily handle the state trooper situation quietly. They were offering a false truce, heavily disguised as a casual family dinner. I observed their body language through the high-definition lens. Marcus was nervously shifting his weight, his eyes darting toward my driveway where my rental car sat. He needed me to absorb the legal blow so he wouldn't face a suspended license and mandatory jail time. Helen was clutching the pizza boxes like a shield, desperately trying to project total domestic normalcy. They believed that by showing up unannounced with cheap food, they could bypass my newly established boundaries. They thought proximity would automatically force my capitulation. I spoke clearly into the microphone, my tone perfectly flat and devoid of emotion. I informed them that all future discussions must occur through my retained legal counsel. I stated that their presence on my property was currently uninvited and legally considered trespassing. Helen's pleasant mask immediately shattered. She dropped the pizza boxes onto the concrete porch, screaming that I was an unnatural, heartless machine. Marcus violently kicked the scattered pizza boxes, yelling that I was dead to him. I did not respond to their sudden violent escalation. I simply pressed a key to save the high-definition security footage directly to my master server. I watched the live feed as they stormed back to Helen's uninsured sedan. They drove away quickly, leaving greasy cardboard and ruined food scattered across my pristine front steps. They thought this false truce would be their easy salvation. They had no idea it was just another recorded behavioral data point for the civil lawsuit. The trap was still perfectly set. The climax arrived the following Tuesday at the county municipal courthouse. Marcus was officially scheduled for his preliminary hearing regarding the reckless endangerment charge. He walked into the busy corridor wearing a poorly tailored gray suit, flanked by Helen. They both looked incredibly smug, confident that I would not show up to formally contest the state trooper's initial report. They assumed the heavy legal system would simply process my absence as an absolute admission of guilt. I sat quietly on a wooden bench near the back of the courtroom, wearing a dark navy suit. My attorney, Sarah, sat beside me holding a thick, premium leather portfolio. When the judge finally called the docket number, Marcus stood up with rehearsed, tragic posture. The state prosecutor began reading the initial citation, heavily emphasizing my supposed intoxication and reckless driving. Marcus nodded solemnly, playing the traumatized victim for the court record. He actually managed to produce a single, genuine-looking tear. Sarah stood up smoothly and formally introduced herself as my retained legal counsel. The sudden appearance of a high-powered corporate attorney instantly changed the entire atmospheric pressure of the room. The judge raised an eyebrow and asked if we were entering a standard plea. Sarah politely declined the plea. She walked toward the prosecutor's table and methodically unpacked the $150,000 dashcam receipts. She handed the judge a physical copy of the 72-page master forensic dossier. Tell me honestly right now. Have you ever possessed the exact documentation needed to completely destroy a liar in public? Have you ever felt the pure, silent adrenaline of holding the absolute, undeniable truth in your hands? Drop a comment below if you know the exact power of a perfectly executed receipt. Sarah directed the judge's attention to page 14. She detailed the exact biometric ignition logs proving Marcus started the vehicle. She referenced page 22, showing the 98% throttle application telemetry. Finally, she handed a secure digital tablet to the bailiff. She requested permission to play the infrared cabin footage for the official court record. The judge nodded, and the courtroom fell completely silent. The high-definition video clearly showed Marcus drinking vodka and screaming while driving my car into a concrete wall. I watched Helen's face drain of all human color. She physically gripped the wooden railing as her fabricated reality collapsed in real time. Marcus stood completely frozen, his mouth slightly open in absolute horror. He looked directly at me, silently begging for a rescue that was never going to come. The judge stared at the tablet, his expression hardening into pure judicial fury. The public confrontation was now officially over, and the receipts had performed flawlessly. The immediate systemic collapse of their entire lives happened with terrifying bureaucratic speed. The judge did not just dismiss the false charges against me. He immediately ordered the bailiff to take Marcus into direct custody for felony perjury and severe insurance fraud. Marcus did not fight or scream, as the heavy steel cuffs clicked around his wrists. He just stared blankly at the floor, completely shattered by the sudden weight of actual consequences. The state prosecutor looked absolutely furious at having their time wasted and immediately filed the updated criminal charges. Helen tried to frantically call her personal attorney from the courtroom hallway. She quickly discovered that her expensive smartphone was still permanently network blocked. She then attempted to access her property management accounts from a public library computer to secure Marcus's bail money. She found only the code 400 for gateway timeout error. Her entire financial ecosystem was frozen inside my encrypted cold storage drives. She could not access a single dollar of her rental income. She was functionally bankrupt in a matter of hours. Without the master commercial insurance policy, Helen's rental properties were placed in immediate default by her mortgage lender. The bank issued a formal notice of acceleration, demanding the full remaining balance within 30 days. Marcus's pending commercial real estate license was instantly revoked by the state licensing board pending his felony fraud conviction. He lost his minor assistant job at the leasing office before the sun even set. They had built their entire arrogant lifestyle on the invisible foundation of my silent labor. I simply removed the foundation, and gravity handled the rest of the destruction. I did not stick around the courthouse to watch Helen weep in the hallway. I did not gloat or offer them any parting insults. I simply walked out to the parking lot with Sarah and paid her final invoice of $3,250. It was the best financial investment I had ever made. I got into my rental car and drove quietly back to my secure home. The chaotic noise of their endless demands was permanently silenced. I finally had total control over my own bandwidth. I sit in my basement data center. The servers hum with quiet efficiency. The ambient temperature is exactly 60 degrees. I am reviewing the telemetry logs of my new vehicle. My phone has not rung in exactly 40 days. The silence is not lonely. The silence is mathematically perfect. Helen recently attempted to mail a handwritten letter. She begged for a financial bridge loan to save her home. I shredded the envelope using an industrial machine. Marcus is currently serving a mandatory state prison sentence. He has zero access to my digital infrastructure. They demanded infinite emotional capital and offered only toxic chaos. I simply recognized a catastrophic systemic failure. I formally closed the primary communication ports. There is absolutely no residual anger left inside my mind. There is only the peaceful hum of perfectly balanced equations. Have you ever finally cut the dead weight from your life? Have you ever felt the cold rush of absolute freedom? Let me know in the comments if you successfully deleted your own toxic network. The most important lesson in forensics is understanding structural limits. Every machine has an absolute breaking point. When you push an engine past its thermal threshold, it breaks. When you push a rational human being too far, they adapt. They do not scream or cry. They just quietly recalibrate their daily operational parameters. They remove the defective components from the motherboard entirely. My life is now a fully closed local area network. The permanent firewall is heavily encrypted and actively engaged. The administrative dashboard shows zero active security threats. The daily operations are running flawlessly without any outside interference. I have never felt more confident and secure. The core system is finally completely stable. I am existing in a state of pure peace.